Hello and welcome to the Tough Cover Podcast with your host, Mark Henry Jr. As always, you can follow me at Mark Henry Jr. _. You can follow The Painted Lines at The Painted Lines and subscribe to The Painted Lines on YouTube. Today is a big one. We are picking the bracket, and I've got a very special guest from Fox PHL The Gambler, Joe Tansey, who you can follow at JTansey90 on Twitter. Joe, how we doing?
I'm doing good. I've gotten all the 48 hours now to figure out what the bracket actually looks like. So I feel like now my gut reactions are out of the way. I've gone deep into the numbers. I feel like now Tuesday and maybe like Wednesday morning are the perfect time to pick out your brackets and to kind of finalize them, because you don't want to make it off of gut. You don't want to make it off of maybe going too deep into the numbers. You want a good combination of both. And I think by now you kind of have a good feel for how you're going to pick.
Yeah, I think that's very true. There's definitely a couple things that I thought I liked on Selection Sunday that I've kind of wavered a bit on. And that it's going to be interesting to see. I always say, the four best days on the sports calendar are Thursday to Sunday, the first and the second round. Those are my favorite 4 days on the whole entire calendar. But the couple days from Selection Sunday leading up to Thursday are right there. Tinkering with the bracket, looking at the lines. I love this. Happy holidays. I'll open that off to Joe and to everyone listening. It's the best time of the year. So without any further ado, we're going to get started here, and we're going to go region by region, breaking it down. We're going to get rid of my face here. You can just see the bracket a little bit better. And we're going to start with Joe Tansey's, what is this, the West region, I believe?
Yeah.
Yes, the West region. So we're going to start in the West region. And we're going to start, you picking Georgia State here, or are we going with Gonzaga?
I think you can easily put Gonzaga into there.
Yeah, I think that's
we don't need to waste more time on that.
Yeah. Boise State, Memphis, an interesting matchup. I know Sean Grace from Fox PHL The Gambler, big on Boise State. John Jansen from Fox PHL The Gambler, huge on Memphis. So this is a showdown for them. Who are you siding with?
This is a tough one to break down, because it's going to very clearly go one of two ways. If the game is under 60, Boise State wins. If the game's over 60, Memphis wins. I don't think Boise State can win in a high-scoring game. And I think I know we talk so much about Memphis being kind of a mess, and everything after Emily Bates left or hasn't been on the floor has been so much better and so much more consistent. And when you look at Memphis's defensive metrics, they're actually better than Boise State's across the board. So I would look at this matchup where Memphis is coming on strong. Look, they beat Houston twice. They beat SMU to get to the AAC final. I love that the Mountain West got a ton of teams into the tournament, but I think Memphis can go strength for strength with Boise State. I think it kind of cancels it out, and then you look at just who has the better talent, and it's obviously Memphis. So I think as much as I would love to see as many Mountain West teams as possible go far because it's something different, this feels like we're tracking towards Gonzaga and Memphis, just based off the way Memphis has been playing. And if it was a different team with worse defensive metrics, I could get behind Boise State, but I'm leaning more Memphis as the hours go on.
You know what? I think this is just going to go better if we go back and forth on each game, because then we can go back and forth a little bit. So I think I could, if I share it right there. Yeah, that's me now. All right, cool. So I'm also not wasting any time with Gonzaga. Unfortunately, Ron Hunter is not the coach of Georgia State. Some may remember him from his son RJ hitting a three to clinch a win, and he fell off like crutches, or what was it? It was
he fell.
Little wheel thing.
He hurt his leg, so he was on something with wheels and fell off, and it was fantastic.
That was legendary March Madness moment. That's the stuff March is made of. And this is an interesting game, this 8-9 game that you just broke down here with Boise State and Memphis. Boise State, I know that you just said that the metrics do kind of say that Memphis has just as good of a defense. I'm sorry. This is a loyalty pick for me. This is not one I'm going to bet on. This is not a game I'm going to bet on. Honestly, I don't think that there's this is a 50-50 game to me. And just like a lot of 8-9s are, I believe the spread is, Memphis -2.5. Now it opened at Memphis -1.5. This is at 145 on Thursday. I'm going to go with Boise State. They won the Mountain West regular season title. They got disrespected the whole way through the tournament as an underdog. They get to there. They beat San Diego State. They win the Mountain West tournament. Penny Hardaway is such a bad coach. I can't overlook it. I can envision a moment late in this game where Penny does something stupid and Memphis loses, and that's the story. And Boise wins.
I will agree with you with Boise State, though. They were absolutely overlooked in the Mountain West because of Wyoming. The guy fell in love with Wyoming. David Roddy at Colorado State's the best player in that conference. So, yeah, I agree with you on that. Boise State definitely did not get the love they deserved as the regular season champion.
Totally agree. And now we're moving on to an interesting matchup, the 5-12. I mean, this is everyone, Johnny Casual who's going to fill out a bracket. You're looking for 5-12 upsets. No one's talking about this one. Why do you think?
So I want to group New Mexico State and Vermont in the same cluster just because I did it yesterday, and it's kind of my default kind of explanation of both teams. And Colgate, who's in one of the other brackets as a 14 seed, fits this description so perfectly as well. These are two teams that are very good within their mid-major leagues. Vermont rolled through the America East. New Mexico State has been the class of the WAC for a long time, and they've been at this stage for a while. But there's a gap between the top of the WAC, the America East, and in Colgate's case, when we get to them, the Patriot League, and then making that step up to play a power conference team in the first round of the NCAA tournament. It's very difficult because that gap is so large. I just don't see it happening here. Look, I know the 5-12 upset is the prototypical upset you want to pick, but I don't see it happening in this game. I think UConn's too good. And when you look at defensively, UConn's got the 5th best 2-point defense in the country. They rank top 40 in a lot of defensive metrics. They're first, by the way, in offensive rebounding. That's one of the keys you look at too. And 66th in free throw shooting. I think this is a team built to at least get out of the first round and be able to take on a fantastic Arkansas team in the second round to kind of go over to that second part of that bracket. Taylor Coppenrath is not coming out of the woodwork for Vermont this time around. This is Arkansas's game to lose. I'm enamored with the way Arkansas can play at its best. Now, look, the only thing I would say from a betting standpoint with Arkansas, last year in the tournament, they came out and started slow in a few games, and that did hurt them, and they had to play catch up. And we've seen that translate into this year. Sometimes Arkansas starts bad and it screws your bet. They end up winning, but they're nowhere close to covering. So keep that in the back of your mind. Maybe Vermont keeps it close, but I think we're bound for UConn, Arkansas, and Hurley versus Musselman is just a sideline matchup I'm dying to see.
So I'm going to surprise you here a little bit, and I'm going to pick an upset. I'm going with New Mexico State. And this is more about UConn than New Mexico State for me. I haven't been huge on UConn, and I do think they're limping in a little bit. And this is honestly more of a gambling pick. I feel more confidently in New Mexico State covering. I think it's 7.5 than I do about them winning, but I'm not having UConn go to the Sweet 16. I'm with you on Arkansas and a lot of the things you just said on Arkansas. So a lot of the times, this is just a bracket strategy thing for me. A lot of the times, if I think that, I don't think UConn's a shoe-in to win this game, and I like Arkansas to go to the Sweet 16, I'm more inclined to look at an upset and pick New Mexico State because it's only that one round of potential points that I'm missing out on. And if it happens, not many people are going to have it, especially this one, because this is one no one's talking about. But UConn comes in, they're 12-17-1 against the spread and 11-14-1 against the spread as a favorite. 1-5 in their last 6 against the spread and 2-8 in their last 10 against the spread. New Mexico State 4-0 against the spread as a dog, come in covering 3 straight. And New Mexico State's got a big backcourt with Teddy Allen and Sir'Jabari Rice. Great name there, Sir'Jabari Rice too. That sounds like a March name if I've ever heard one. So that's a big backcourt for UConn, who doesn't have a huge backcourt. I do know that they come from that small conference. That definitely gives me concerns. They did beat Davidson, who's a team I take pretty seriously, as you'll hear in a little bit. So I like New Mexico State to get it done here and win this game. And moving on to the next game that you talked about, I also like Arkansas to win that game. This is not the same Vermont team that I was as afraid of a few years ago when they were in the tournament. Arkansas, I think it's a pretty favorable draw with Vermont as the 13th seed. I think this bracket's set up really nicely for the Must-Bus to get to the second weekend. And just a gambling thing, I like the over here in Arkansas Vermont at 139. The last 6 Arkansas games have went over. Both teams are 19-12 on the over this year. Both play fast tempos. Vermont averaging 75 points per game. Arkansas averaging 77 points per game. Arkansas has an average of 146 points per game on the total. And like you just said, if Arkansas does start slow, it almost could help the over because I think close games always help the over instead of blowouts. So if they get behind and then they force to have to get run and gun in there, I could see that really helping the over.
Yeah, I feel safe with Arkansas with the 5 right now. Anything maybe close to 7, if somebody were to push it that direction, I'd go towards Vermont. Just because I have a little trust issues at the start with Arkansas. I love what they bring, and at their best, they win this game very easily. But I'm very comfortable with where the number is right now at 5 with the Hogs. I think it's a safe spot to bet them, even if the slow start happens again.
Yeah, I think that Arkansas is a really good team. I mean, it's that simple for me. I think Arkansas's got that tournament experience from last year. They went to the Elite Eight. I feel like people are kind of forgetting that. I think
and look, Musselman went to the second weekend with Nevada too. So
that's a great point.
Coaching experience is one of those things you absolutely have to take into account at this time of year.
So I think we're both advancing Arkansas, and you have Gonzaga, Memphis. I have Gonzaga, Boise State up here. So I'm picking Gonzaga. When I first saw this bracket open, I said, Boise State could give Gonzaga problems. They have a good defense, but the more you think about it, I just don't think they can score with the Zags, and I just don't think, they can't keep it close. I think this will be like a 9-10 point spread if I had to guess. So the guards will have to show up here for Gonzaga, but I think they do, and Gonzaga moves on. So you have Gonzaga, Memphis here.
Yeah, but I think we both have Gonzaga, Arkansas as our final result, being that Sweet 16 matchup. I think it's suited for that. I think they're the 2 best teams in that quadrant.
So let's move it down and keep going with the first round at the bottom of this West bracket. So I'm still on your screen here. All right, cool. So we have Alabama, who is facing the winner of the play-in game, which is tomorrow against Rutgers and Notre Dame. First off, do you have any lean on that Rutgers-Notre Dame play-in game?
Yeah, Rutgers is going to beat the living crap out of Notre Dame. I don't think that game's close. And Rutgers is the at-large team that wins a first-round game.
So Rutgers versus Alabama, you're taking Rutgers as well. So let's advance Rutgers. And then let's get to Texas Tech, Montana State. Do we have to spend any time here?
Oh, I don't think we have to spend a ton of time. I have Texas Tech going to the Sweet 16 from that set of games. Look, I think Texas Tech's defense is what gets them to the second weekend. It's no surprise that's how they're going to want to win games. And then with Rutgers, they just have 2 really, really good players in Geo Baker and Ron Harper Jr. And because Alabama has just been so spotty, you don't know what you're going to get out of them. And look, Rutgers isn't going to be – they're not going to have any fear going into that Wednesday game against Notre Dame. They're not going to have any fear going into that Friday game against Alabama. I like what I saw out of them over the last month. And I think they can beat a team like Notre Dame, a team like Alabama that are inconsistent. I think Texas Tech does slow them down and wins and gets to the Sweet 16. But I think my boldest bracket take is that Rutgers fairly easily gets into the round of 32.
So I totally understand that, and I've been on Rutgers all year long. That fan base is awesome at Rutgers. Went to an event there earlier this year. But Alabama, it's funny. I think all 3 teams here. I know you're super low on Notre Dame, and I'm not high on them. So let me just clear that.
Mm-hmm.
But Alabama can beat any team in the country and lose to any team in the country. Rutgers can definitely beat any team in the country and lose to any team in the country, especially at home. And Notre Dame showed when they beat Notre Dame, or when they beat Kentucky, that they can hang with the big boys, and they haven't been the same since then necessarily, and they've limped in. I think Rutgers gets it done against Notre Dame as well. But I'm bullish on Nate Oates as a coach. I'm bullish on Shackelford and Kinnerly of Alabama and the guard play that wins in the tournament. So give me Alabama to at least win this one. It does seem like everyone is taking the winner of the play-in games. I feel like both of them to win both of the games, and I understand why it has been a huge advantage, and you'll get to hear why I think that in the other one. But I'm going with Alabama here just because I do think they are dangerous, and I'm also going with Texas Tech. I don't have much to say there. They have the great defense, the best defense in the country. That's not the type of team that's losing in the first round, in my opinion. So now let's get to a really, really interesting game here. I didn't advance Texas Tech for you there, but let's get to a really interesting.
By the way, before you hop to the next one, I don't know what the spread or the total is going to be on Alabama Rutgers, but I'm definitely taking the over in that game. I feel like that could just be an up and down track meet, and the inconsistencies of both teams show. I may not bet Rutgers outright, but I'm definitely going to bet the over in that game just because I feel like that's got like 75-70 written all over it.
It definitely could. So let's get to Michigan State Davidson.
The Foster Lawyer revenge game.
This is a huge one. So start it off.
Look, I know everybody's high on Davidson. I get it. I have trust issues with this game. I really do. And I think it's probably one of the like 3 hardest games for me to pick. Davidson, everything about them says they win this game. They have a fantastic set of players. Bob McKillop's been there, done that. But it's just something about Izzo in March, and I feel like Michigan State's going to find a way. I don't know how, but my gut just tells me Michigan State. And I'm in this spot where this game is a toss-up to me, and I'm going to trust my gut and go away from the numbers. And I just think we're bound for Michigan State Duke and CBS to get buku ratings for Izzo versus Coach K over the weekend.
So I'm on the other side here. This is one of my favorite bets of the week on Davidson here to win. I think they're +2 right now. You mentioned Foster Lawyer. He was the Michigan Player of the Year in high school in 2018, transferred from Michigan State to Davidson. That's something to watch for, and this game could be a story. They let me down in the A-10 title game, up 8 with 1:30 to go, but I'm not going to let a fluky result cloud my judgment on a dangerous Davidson team. They're 5-2 against the spread as an underdog. Lawyer and Lee provide Davidson with such strong guard play and three-point shooting. Luka Brockovich, really, really good inside player on the and who can also pop out on the perimeter. Michigan State only has one scorer in double figures. We saw against Purdue, their offense can go quiet. They don't have anywhere near the guard play of Davidson, in my opinion. And I get it. Tom Izzo owns March. I would be lying if I said I'm not a little bit scared about that. But Bob McKillop's no slouch. He's been coaching Davidson since 1989. He coached one of the greatest Cinderella runs of all time with Steph Curry in 2008, a year they were also a 10 seed. He's coached, this will be his 10th tournament, and in the last 5 tournaments, he's advanced at least one round 4 times as a double-digit seed each time. This is Davidson's best record since they've been in the A-10, and it's their best record dating all the way back to 06-07, I believe the early Steph Curry days. So I'm going with Davidson here to beat Michigan State, and I think we're both advancing Duke past that, I believe, past Cal State Fullerton.
Yeah, I'm advancing Duke, and I think I'm advancing them pretty easily. I think they kind of have to just let everything out in that game, and I wouldn't be surprised if they cover the 18.5 as well.
Wow, it's 18.5. Wow.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of and I think I said this to you on Sunday. I'm thinking of the funniest way for Coach K to go out. There really is no ridiculous way for him to go out, because if it's Izzo, if Izzo beats him, it's classy. If Texas Tech beats him, it's classy because Mark Adams, from all accounts, outside of the Chris Beard situation, is a stand-up guy
at the grocery store.
And look, Gonzaga, I think that's just going to be a knockdown, drag out, just absolute offensive battle. I have everything pointing to Gonzaga and Duke going into the Elite Eight. I mean, I have chalk, which I hate, but I have chalk all the way through in the West with only one upset, and that's Alabama losing. But yeah, I hate that it's chalky, but that's kind of just the way things end up sometimes. So I know I'm getting a little ahead of myself here, but I think Gonzaga beats Duke in the Elite Eight, gets to the Final Four. I think it's going to be a fantastic game for college basketball. I just feel like Gonzaga is going to have that extra push, and Coach K does not make it back to the Final Four.
No, I totally understand that. And then I'll kind of run through mine kind of fast here with Alabama, Texas Tech here. This is, that's an interesting game, but Texas Tech's going to it's a style clash with Alabama's offense and Texas Tech's defense. Texas Tech's going to punch Alabama in the face. Alabama's showing a lack of consistency. I don't think they'll be able to string a few games together. So give me Texas Tech. But this is a big one. Duke and Davidson. Davidson has such strong guard play and a great big man, the 3-point shooting, the free throw shooting, the coaching stats I laid out before. This is so dangerous for Duke. But I'm going to pick Duke, even though I'm nervous about their stretch here. I think they have a brutal path with Davidson and Texas Tech. Moving up to Gonzaga. I love Arkansas, but what are Arkansas's problems? A lack of size and perimeter shooting. Mm-hmm. Those are the two things that you need to beat Gonzaga. Size to contain Chet and Timmy, and perimeter shooting to score with them. Terrible matchup. So give me Gonzaga. And then I'm taking Duke. I think this is a heavyweight fight. I think both of these teams could go. I think there's no ceiling for either of these teams. I think they could both get to the Final Four, but that's the reason I'm picking the winner of this game to lose to Gonzaga, because I think Gonzaga has a really clear path to get to that Elite Eight. I'm not sure who gets there out of Texas Tech and Duke over here. So I'm going to take Duke. I'm not very confident in it because Texas Tech's style of play is so dangerous, and they're going to force you to play their style. It's going to be a close game, but Duke probably has the two best players on the floor with Paolo and Wendell Moore. So give me Duke in that game, and then I had Duke initially when the bracket first came out. I think if this
You got me, Mark?
Yeah, I might have been
okay.
I might have been speaking on mute there, I guess, for 10 seconds. I didn't know I was on mute.
You're good. You're good.
But we got Baylor and Norfolk State. I don't think we have to spend much time here. I think we're both taking Baylor. Let's get to the 8-9 here. Do you have any strong feelings on North Carolina and Marquette? Are you going to be betting on this game? I think Carolina's a 2.5 3-point favorite.
If this was mid to late January, Marquette is my pick. Mm-hmm. It's not mid to late January. North Carolina, they're up to a 3-point favorite. I think they win this matchup fairly handily. They're the team in better form. Marquette went on a fantastic run throughout January, February, where they beat Villanova. They beat a bunch of good teams in the Big East. I just feel like they're fading. And maybe if the regular season goes on another week or two, we're talking about them in the same conversation as Xavier. I think they're trending downward. I think North Carolina has enough talent to be able to do that and win that game fairly easily, and then set up what I think is one of the biggest individual mismatches potentially in the second round, with Armando Bacot going up against the Baylor front line without Jonathan John Mochachua. I think it's got me.
There we go. I got you.
Okay.
Now.
Yeah, I think Baylor's just they've been hurt by injuries a bit, and I think they're the most flawed of the 4-1 seeds. So I'm going to take North Carolina, and I'm taking them to the Sweet 16. It's probably a decision I'm going to regret very soon, but that's my one kind of bold prediction, that Baylor is the only 1 seed that doesn't make it out of the first weekend.
Yeah, so I'm right there with you. And I'm going with North Carolina. I think North Carolina is a live dog here. I think Baycott is the big man that you want to see against Baylor, and he's also the big man that I don't think Marquette has an answer for. Justin Lewis has been really cold for Marquette down the stretch here. Marquette has not been the same team, like you said. I like Carolina to advance, and I do think that it's an absolute nightmare matchup for Baylor in the second round. So I'll put them ahead right here. They play up to competition. We saw it on the big stage against Duke. I think they show it again. If Baylor had JTT, I'd probably pick North Carolina, but I think they pull off another upset, and that's the first 1 seed to go down for me.
And you can also get North Carolina at plus 400 to make the Sweet 16 over at DraftKings.
Wow.
So if you're looking, once you make your bracket, then I'd say go to the books, see what they have to offer in terms of your upset picks to make the Sweet 16. Because when you have a number like that plus 400, what are they going to be against Baylor? Probably in the 200s on the money line.
Yeah.
If probably being honest, you're going to get that value to pick them to go to the Sweet 16. They got to win twice. I know it's tough to convince yourselves that North Carolina can do that, but in terms of betting value, keep an eye on that. That's probably where I attack that prop the most, because I do feel confident enough to put UNC into the Sweet 16.
Yeah, I like that a lot. And I actually, right after this, was going to look at Sweet 16 props for a podcast I'm doing tomorrow. So that's definitely one that I'm going to be looking at. So I believe so. There we go. So you're advancing you're also advancing North Carolina, correct?
I am. I feel like that's a decision I can either regret or I'm going to absolutely brag about when the weekend's over.
Well, yeah. We don't talk about the ones we get wrong. We only talk about the ones we get right.
Oh,
so.
I will admit when I'm wrong.
Me too. I'm joking.
I want to admit that I'm right more than I'm wrong.
Of course.
We all do.
So let's get to this another play-in game with one tonight. Do you have a bet on the game tonight with Wyoming, Indiana?
I do. I have Wyoming plus 4. I think that the matchup is going to give us a very tight game. You have Graham EK from Wyoming going up against Trace Jackson Davis from Indiana. And then in the backcourt, Hunter Maldonado and Xavier Johnson. It's going to be a battle. It really is. I feel like it's going to be very close. Wyoming is the better free throw shooting team. Indiana shot over 70% in each of their games from the line in the Big Ten tournament, but only one time did they get over 80%. There's a little bit of variance there. There's some misses there. And Indiana was a little bit inconsistent. Both teams have really solid defensive metrics. I just go with the team I can trust a little more, and maybe I'm just relying too much on the numbers with the free throws, but I think Wyoming at least keeps it close. I feel like it's one of those where Wyoming covers, but Indiana wins. And I think whoever wins the game tonight loses to St. Mary's. I think St. Mary's at least wins a game in the tournament. They're so good, they're so experienced, and they do very little wrong.
So I like Indiana to win a close one tonight, but I don't have a bet on that game because just like you, I think it's going to be really close. Indiana does not play blowout games. Every game they play is close, no matter who they're playing. They play up and down the competition. There's a lot of teams like that. And I think the next game's going to be close. I think St. Mary's and Indiana. I think if that's the game, what do you think that spread will be? Actually, St. Mary's Indiana or St. Mary's Wyoming?
I'm actually more intrigued by the total, and if it's anywhere north of 125. I'd probably hammer the under.
Interesting.
Because St. Mary's plays a very slow pace, defensive style, and Indiana is not afraid to play a game in the high 50s, low 60s, and win it. That's just the way their defense helps them win games. I don't see that matchup going into the 70s, and even if it's against Wyoming, I don't see it being in the 70s. I think 65 points probably wins that game regardless for St. Mary's, and that's the way they want to play, and at least in the first round, they could play to their style.
So I think Trace Jackson Davis is one of the guys that I love watching. I hope we get to watch him twice in this tournament. I like Mike Woodson as a coach. I think he's got a good future there in Indiana, and if Trace Jackson Davis stays, then I think they'll be really good next year. Indiana has looked like a different team down the stretch that's figured out their late game issues. And like I said, they can play with and beat anyone. And even if Wyoming wins the play-in, whoever wins the game, I like Wyoming or Indiana to advance here as a 12 seed. And this is, again, another one. I don't think the winner of this game goes to the Sweet 16 anyway, so I'm more inclined to pick an upset. And then moving on to the next game, we've got UCLA and Akron, which I love this draw for UCLA. The only reason Akron is here is because of the Kent State suspensions and the drama around it. This should be Kent State. I bet on Kent State before that news came out. I'm still upset about it. It marred my Tough Cover Show debut. That was the breaking news at the end of the show. But Akron doesn't scare me as some of the other 13 seeds do. Give me UCLA. I love this draw.
Yeah, UCLA, I put a future in on them. I think they were, plus 3,000 on Friday night when they were beating USC.
Same.
I like the look of this team, and I like their draw. I think even if Baylor beats Carolina, I think UCLA has a very solid draw in the top half of that bracket where, man, this team could be playing for a Final Four berth, and I actually think they will be. I think St. Mary in this UCLA St. Mary's matchup I have in the second round, I don't see St. Mary's being able to keep up with UCLA. They're going to have to hold them, and I think even UCLA is built to play a defensive game. And I think that the one guy that's going to be so vital throughout this stretch is Jaime Jaquez. He kind of does a little bit of everything. Look, we're going to talk so much about Juzang because of the tournament he had last year. Tiger Campbell is an experienced point guard. And remember when Mick Cronin...
Best hair in the country, Tiger Campbell.
And remember when Mick Cronin was at Cincinnati, what were those teams known for? Winning rock fights. UCLA, if they have to win a rock fight, you got the right coach to do it in Mick Cronin. So I think that may be what happens against St. Mary's. I see UCLA getting to the Sweet 16, and next weekend in Philly is going to be Blue Blood Central. I have North Carolina playing UCLA, and then I'll get to the other side where there's another Blue Blood that's cruising through as well.
Yeah, I also have North Carolina and UCLA right here. I would have UCLA and Indiana, which is almost that's its own blue blood matchup.
It is.
And that's the Steve Alford game, UCLA and Indiana right there. But
it is.
Give me UCLA to keep rolling due to that experience that they gained last year. And just to your point, Jaquez is the better player. He's the best player on that team, and he's the most important player on that team, even beyond Juzang, even beyond Campbell. I could not agree more. I saw some stat line of his last 5 to 7 games, and it's like, wow, he's playing, better than just about anyone in the country.
And don't forget about Peyton Watson either. They're freshmen. I think he's going to be a guy that steps up even more throughout the tournament as well. I mean, look, anywhere you look on the UCLA roster, there's a lot to like, and the experience from last year just makes it even easier to like them.
Yeah, usually when a 1 seed loses, it forces a bad matchup, and it's like, oh, we would have got a great matchup in the Sweet 16 or the Elite 8. I don't think anyone's complaining about Carolina, UCLA, but give me UCLA's tourney experience over UNC, and give me Mick Cronin over Hubert Davis. Most importantly, I'm a huge Mick Cronin guy. I think he's one of the 5 to 7 best coaches in the country. So you'll see that I'm going to continue having UCLA going. So let's go to the bottom of our brackets here, and we're going to start off with a game that, to be honest, out of all of the first round games in the entire bracket, I have the least idea of what to do with Texas Virginia Tech. What do you think about this game? Help me out.
So Virginia Tech and I'll add Richmond into this category as well, give off Georgetown vibes from last year, where Georgetown got into the Big East tournament, won 4 games in 4 days, and then just didn't show up against Colorado. And I read that like a book. I think that happens with Richmond, and I fear that's going to happen with Virginia Tech as well. I think Virginia Tech is the more talented team than Richmond, but just to get there was a slog for Virginia Tech. They had to exude a lot of energy, and now to flip that around and get back up for a game like this against Texas, who, with all their flaws, still have a head coach that made a national championship game. And the reason why he was brought to Texas was to win games like this, not to win a game in mid-February. The more I think about it, the more I look at the more complete picture. And Texas was a more complete team, albeit flawed, but they were a more complete team throughout the season than Virginia Tech was, and I think that's where I lean, and that's where I end up taking Texas. You're right, it's a very hard game to kind of figure out, but I do think Texas shows its true colors and at least wins one game. And I think out of all the teams in that bracket in the East, they're the team we're not talking about enough that could potentially make a run to the second weekend.
Yeah, so this is like I said, I have no read. I have no feel on this game. I'm going with Virginia Tech just because it's the hot team. I do. The Georgetown thing does scare me. They absolutely, I could be totally wrong there. But again, I don't think that team's getting to the Sweet 16 no matter who wins that game. So I'm willing to take a little bit of an upset. So Purdue Yale. I'm assuming you're advancing Purdue here.
I am, and I feel like I'm going a little more chalk again, but I think Purdue is a very good team, and I feel like the advantage they have down low, not just with Zach Edey, but with Travion Williams, I feel like that could really hurt Texas, and I just think they're going to have they might have the three best players on the floor when they play Texas.
100%. Yeah.
Jaden Ivey being one, Zach Edey, and then throw in your Sasha Stefanovic or Travion Williams.
Yeah, you could argue four. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think Purdue does get out of the bracket into the second round, into the Sweet 16. But I do think we do get Purdue and Texas, and I guess you can count Purdue as a basketball blue blood in this bracket.
There. Yeah, I think they're getting there for sure in terms of that blue blood status. A good run here could definitely cement them for sure. So I am going with Purdue here to take care of Virginia Tech, who I obviously wasn't too, enthused about anyway. So I kind of love how at least this bracket broke for Purdue to get to the Sweet 16. Beyond that, it's a landmine. But I'm going with Purdue to get there. Let's talk about Murray State and San Francisco. This is a game that is one of my favorite games on the board in the first round.
I'm going to disappoint you.
Uh-oh.
I think San Francisco is the pick here. The more I look at this, you have to credit Murray State for what they've done. But how good was the OVC? Wasn't great. Belmont, they caught them on two really bad nights. Belmont doesn't score 103 total points against anybody. They just don't. They're a team that typically scores in the 70s and 80s. And the fact that, it's a compliment to Murray State's defense, but it's also two bad shooting nights. Morehead State isn't, they're an average mid-major team at best. San Francisco played in the better conference. Their record doesn't show that they're better than Murray State, but I think the battles that they went through with Gonzaga, with St. Mary's, they had played two really close games with St. Mary's, and they have comparable defensive metrics to Murray State. Actually, they have the better 3-point defense. They have effective field goal percentage, adjusted efficiency. They're all kind of in that same quadrant of teams in the top 40, top 50. And then, I look at offensively. I know Murray State's got a little bit of an advantage, but man, I think just out of a battle-tested team out of San Francisco, I'm giving them the edge. And maybe it's just me picking the WCC over the OBC, and that may be kind of the wrong way to approach it. But I like what San Francisco is, and they don't give up. They're a really hard team to get out of the tournament, and I do think they win this game. It'd be very close, without a doubt, very close. I just think San Francisco played in a bunch of tougher games than Murray State. I think that shows in the final 4 minutes.
This was a game that I was shocked when we were on the Twitter Spaces on Sunday that it opened with Murray State at +1.5. It's now I think at Murray State -1.5. And I've been on the Racers for months, and I've kind of been fading the Dons for months. So personally, I don't think they should be in this tournament. I think they should have been left out. They do have wins over Davidson and UAB, but besides that, they went 0-6 against Gonzaga, St. Mary's, and Loyola. I know that the two games against St. Mary's were close, but the ones with Loyola and Gonzaga weren't necessarily. So I don't get how they're any better than any of the first 4 teams as well. 24-9 in the WCC without that like stamped big win. Murray State 30-2, 18-0 in the conference, obviously. But I agree with you. The OVC is not great, but they do have, just in terms of the team, they have the big man in KJ Williams, who should be the best player on the floor, averaging 18-9. They got the guards in Brown and Hill. All 3 of those guys have tourney experience from 2019 on the Ja Morant team. Matt McMahon also has experience, Murray State's coach, from that team, and he's making his 3rd tourney appearance at Murray State. This will be San Francisco coach's Todd Golden first tournament at San Francisco. So that's another advantage to Murray State. So I like Murray State a lot here. I locked it in at Murray State plus 1.5. So I am taking Murray State, and then I'm taking Kentucky over St. Peter's. St. Peter's does have like a top 10 defense, I'm pretty sure, but people had them as the 16 seed. I think some people even had them as playing in the play-in as a 16 seed. So Kentucky got a pretty good draw here with St. Peter's. And then that brings us to a really fun Murray State, or I guess it brings me to a fun Murray State-Kentucky matchup here. Little brother, big brother in Kentucky. And this is a scary matchup to me for Kentucky. There's a reason Murray State's 30-2, and it's because they're good, in my opinion. So I think this will be really, really, really close and really tight. But I'm going with Kentucky to lead into Kentucky-Purdue. Jeez.
I got Kentucky going to the Elite Eight. I think when I look at these matchups, I think Sheboy is the better big man, the best big man in the bottom half of the bracket. There's so much talent. I put stock in veteran guards. You mentioned Davidson earlier. The one guy they don't have is Kellen Grady, who did so much at that school for so long. I think his experience benefits them as an X factor. I think Sheboy, looking forward, I think they do beat San Francisco pretty handily. And then looking forward to the Purdue matchup. I think Sheboy's athleticism and just able to kind of be a little more flexible in the paint kills Zach Edey. I think Zach Edey gets into foul fairly quickly in that matchup in the Sweet 16. So I have UCLA, Kentucky, and I mean, if CBS gets that matchup, they'll be ecstatic with that. I have Kentucky going to the Final Four out of this bracket. I've fallen in love with them. I think they're one of the most complete teams in the country. They have guard play. They have a National Player of the Year down low, and Cal's been there many times before. I think this is probably one of the best shots Cal has to win another title, and I think they're going to at least have a shot at it.
Yeah, so that brings me to my Purdue-Kentucky matchup, or as I said, Purducky. So I think Purdue, this is, by the way, one of the toughest games in the whole entire bracket for me to pick. These are the 2 teams, or these were 2 of the 3 teams that I wanted to pick to win the title. Ultimately, they come in limping a little bit, both of them, but Purdue's got 2 bigs to deal with Oscar. They've got Ivy and Stefanovic to throw at Ty and Wheeler. Obviously, Purdue's got probably not as good of a defense as Kentucky, but a little bit better of an offense, even though Kentucky has a really good offense. I like Purdue just a bit more, so I'm going with Purdue, and then that leads me to UCLA and Purdue, which to me I think is another incredibly tough matchup. And and if I'm being honest, these were the 2 teams I wanted to pick to win the title. Kentucky was 3rd. I'm mad at the committee for putting them all in one bracket. But since Purdue has to play Kentucky, I actually think that's a harder route than UCLA. So I'm going to go with UCLA. And in my opinion, this is giving away a big part. So I think the winner of this East region is going to win the national championship.
Interesting. I like that. It's a battle-tested region for sure.
Absolutely. So how do I get over to the other side of this bracket now? That's going to be an interesting test here.
Well, I'll help you while you're trying to get there, and I'll put Arizona into all of our brackets here. In their region. Wright State Bryant should at least be a high-scoring game tomorrow night. I think the over-under's in the 150s. I know we talk so much about Peter Kiss with Bryant, but Grant Basile from Wright State's a solid player in his own right. I think that should be at least a fun 16-seed game, but I think both teams maybe tire themselves out, and Arizona takes care of them. Kirk Kriisa or no Kirk Kriisa, Arizona should be fine, I think, for the entire first weekend.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I do think Bryant is a better. I think they got screwed here a little bit, but I guess it's fun that they get to play a 16 seed play in.
Mm-hmm.
It feels like they should be like a 15 seed or maybe a better 16 seed, but whatever. Arizona's going to dominate, so put them forward. And then we got Seton Hall and TCU. What do you think here?
There's one stat that stands out to me out of this matchup, and that's in offensive rebounding. TCU is number 2. Seton Hall is 47th. There are very few differences between the two, and I think the case you can make against TCU is they rank below 300th on KenPom in three-point offense and free throws, but Seton Hall also ranks below 300 in two-point offense. So both of these teams have flaws. I really like what TCU ended up doing in the Big 12. They were a really pesky team, and it only took until Kansas beating them by 13 points in the semifinals of the Big 12 tournament to really kind of flick them like a really annoying gnat away from their shoulders. And by the way, Kevin Willard, does he have eyes elsewhere? Mm-hmm. Does he have eyes on Maryland? Does he have one foot out the door? I think that may play a role in this as well. And let's not forget, Jamie Dixon's the coach of TCU. I know we talk about coaching. Coaching is one of my X factors when I look at teams. Jamie Dixon had a lot of success with Pitt in the tournament. I know it's been a long time since DeJuan Blair was in college, but he's still got that. And I think that's a little bit of an edge. I think, again, this game is very close, like all the 8-9 games. But I give the slight edge to TCU. But, again, whoever wins that game is losing to Arizona.
Yeah, TCU 10-4-1 against the spread as an underdog, 18-11-1 against the spread overall. Jamie Dixon has those guys rolling and believing in themselves. They're battle tested, like you said, in the Big 12. They come into the tournament on a run of being underdogs in their last 7 games that they've played. Seton Hall is a classic on the other way. They're another team that you bet as an underdog, fade as a favorite. TCU's the dog here. Give me the points, even if it's 2 points. I'm taking TCU to advance as well, and I agree. We're both advancing Arizona to the Sweet 16. So let's get to a fun little quadrant here with Houston, UAB, and Illinois Chattanooga.
The most vulnerable quadrant for
totally agree
for these guys. Yep.
So who do you have in Houston, UAB?
So I think I think my final decision here is Houston's going to win the game, but they're definitely not going to cover. I think that's the way I put it. There are metrics that I probably use a little more than I should when I look at these matchups. And the biggest thing that stands out for me for Houston is their free throw shooting. They rank 322nd on KenPom. That's the 4th worst of the 68 tournament teams. If you expect this to be a somewhat close game, and UAB, who, by the way, ranks 9th in three-point offense, kind of throwing a hypothetical out here, if this game, say, within 10 points or in that range in the final 4 minutes, UAB is going to foul. Does Houston make all their foul shots? Maybe not. Is UAB going to be able to maybe sneak in the back door or even keep it as close and not even worry about a back door? I think that's the case. I think Houston wins this game. Kelvin Sampson's a very good coach. There's a reason why they've gone deep in the tournament before. I like the story of UAB. Jordan Jelly Walker is a fantastic story, fantastic mid-major March player. But I think Houston is just too good for UAB as a whole to win this game. But I definitely don't think Houston covers. And I think the spread was 8.5 the last time I checked.
Yeah, I love UAB here in terms of against the spread, and I also love them to make a little bit of a run here. I wish that these teams were flipped. I wish UAB was playing Illinois, and I wish Chattanooga was playing Houston, because then I would have Houston beat Chattanooga and UAB beat Illinois, and this matchup would be happening in the second round. But Jelly Walker, I'm believing. I'm buying all the way in on the hype.
You're sipping the juice, huh?
I'm eating the jelly donuts. I'm all in on Jelly Walker. I'm all in on Andy Kennedy. I'm in on everything that they bring to the table in their guard play. And then I'm also taking Chattanooga. This is my crazy little quadrant, and it also opens up the bracket for Arizona to moonwalk to the Elite Eight. And then I'm gonna, like I said, I wish UAB had the easier first round matchup. I think UAB is the better team here than Chattanooga. But I think it's more likely Chattanooga will be in the second round, if that makes sense. Either way, though, I'm taking UAB to go to the Sweet 16. And then just to finish it off right there, I'm taking Arizona to smoke UAB once they get to the Sweet 16. So who are you taking in Illinois, Chattanooga, and what's going to happen there in that little quadrant?
I have trust issues with Illinois.
Same here.
And I think the way you look at this is, if you don't trust Andre Curbelo, can you trust Kofi Coburn? You can, but Silvio De Souza's on the other side of Chattanooga. That's a pretty decent matchup for Chattanooga. At least they have somebody who can deal with Coburn's size. My heart wants to take Chattanooga in this. My head tells me Illinois does get the job done. And I think we see Houston and Illinois in just an absolute rock fight of a game in the second round. I'm going to probably lean Houston just because of their consistency. I know they haven't been good, but they're fourth in KenPom. And that's got to mean something. Kelvin Sampson taking this group far in recent years has to mean something. I think Houston gets to the Sweet 16. I really do. I know they are probably one of the most vulnerable top 5 seeds out there, but I look at it, I see coaching, I see a strong defense, I see a team that's been able to gut out wins in the NCAA tournament before, and that's why Houston gets my vote to play Arizona in the Sweet 16.
And then let's just finish it out up there so we can move to the bottom. Who are you taking Arizona to advance past Houston?
Yeah, I think Arizona's got the look of a Final Four team, and it just feels inevitable that we're looking at Arizona Villanova in that Elite Eight matchup.
Totally agree. It's the Elite Eight matchup that I feel most confident that we're going to get to see. So let's move on to Colorado State, Michigan here in the 6-11 matchup. I believe, is this starting off the tournament? Is this the first game of the tournament?
It's the first round game, yeah.
The first game of the tournament is always fun. I feel like every year it's always a 6-11 or a 5-12, something like that. And it always ends up being a close game, and it's one of the stories of the tournament. Do you think that happens here?
I think Michigan wins this game.
Wow, we're going head to head here a lot. I like it.
I'm going back to the same pillars I use to break down close games. Coaching, okay, you can say Juwan Howard. It's not there. That's fine. They have a senior guard in Eli Brooks, who was part of those teams in Beeline's final few years. Hunter Dickinson is still a fantastic player in his own right. You look at their seniors on this team. Brandon Johns was a part of those teams, a team that played Villanova. Devontae Jones is a senior guard. I put a lot of stock in that, and I think they're going to be able to deal with a player like David Roddy, and I do think that Michigan is the team we're maybe not talking about enough, just because they absolutely did not live up to expectations. They have time to reset. I think they win this game. And I know the Big Ten's weak, but everything I break down here, Michigan checks off at least multiple boxes of what I see in close games, and I got to go to the Wolverines on that one.
So I'm going against you here with Colorado State. This is one of my favorite bets of the week. Michigan's 8-14 against the spread as a favorite. So inconsistent to me. Colorado State's 3-1 as a dog against the spread and straight up. They went 25-5 this year. Everyone likes Michigan, in my opinion, in this game. I think everyone's going to have Michigan in their bracket. Even Vegas, obviously, is favoring Michigan here by 2.5 points, which does say a lot. The public is going to remember their tourney run last year, and they're gonna want to bet on Juwan Howard and Hunter Dickinson and the tournament experience that they have. And I'd be lying if I said I'm not a little bit afraid of the similarities they have to last year's UCLA team. In terms of that, in terms of making a run. UCLA was from the play-in, and Michigan doesn't have to play in the play-in, but there's definitely some similarities between Michigan and UCLA, both disappointing in the regular season. But I'm going to decide to put stock in the regular season, and every time I thought Michigan was going to turn it around and start being who I thought they were, they kind of just disappointed me. And the prime example was in the Big Ten tournament. They're up big in the first half to Indiana, and they choke it away. I think Colorado State is legit. David Roddy Piper is better than Hunter Dickinson, in my opinion. I think he'll be the best player on the court. So the Rams have wins against San Diego State, Wyoming. They swept Boise State, and they blew out St. Mary's and Creighton. So I think that's how you become a 6th seed without winning the Mountain West. I think some people would be surprised that a team that didn't win the Mountain West regular season or tournament got to be the 6th seed, but they did it by winning pretty big games. And then we have Tennessee and Longwood in that 3-14. I don't have much to say. I don't think that the Longwood Lancers can give Tennessee a game here. What about you?
No, but
I'm
going to kind of surprise you here, and I'm maybe surprising myself too. I have Michigan beating Tennessee.
Wow, that's a big one. I like it. That's underdog.
I don't trust Rick Barnes in the NCAA tournament. I just don't. And that's what it comes down to. And I think when I look at that matchup, look, Tennessee's going to beat Longwood. I think that's fairly easy. It might be a struggle though, because I think Rick Barnes, saw the stat, he's like covered once as in the NCAA tournament is like the last 12 or 13 games. It's not great. Hunter Dickinson's a better player than John Fulkerson. Tennessee has some freshman guards. Senior experience is how I look at this. And Juwan Howard and Rick Barnes, I don't see a massive difference coaching-wise. And for me, all of my factors that build up there, give me Michigan Villanova in the Sweet 16.
Well, yeah, we'll get to that bottom, and I definitely have Villanova right there with you. I've got Colorado State and Tennessee here. This is a game I thought about a ton. I really wanted to pull the trigger on David Roddy, but because I am concerned about Michigan in that first round, I'm going with Tennessee because I know they'll be in the second round. So I'm picking them to go to the Sweet 16, and then we get Ohio State versus Sister Jean. And that's the matchup. No Loyola, because Sister Jean made it about herself. It's all about Sister Jean now. It's not about the kids. So I'm going with Ohio State over Loyola in this 7-10 matchup. This Loyola team is not quite the same as the last two teams that made runs. No Krutwig, no star guard. They only have 2 players in double figures. I get that they want to make it sloppy, but I don't think they can score with the Buckeyes. So I think Ohio State has by far the 2 best players in this game, with EJ Liddell and Malachi Branham, who are both going to be in the NBA draft next year. I know Ohio State comes in limping. I know Sister Jean doesn't lose. I know everyone will have Loyola. Ohio State needs redemption for their loss to Oral Roberts as a 2 seed. I don't think Holtman lets them lose here again. By the way, I didn't mention it, but North Carolina got embarrassed last year against Wisconsin. They also have something to prove. Everyone's back from that team pretty much. North Carolina's coming in with a chip on their shoulder from getting knocked out in the first round by like 30 points to Wisconsin. That's part of why I like them to make a run in this tournament as well. That same logic applies here for Ohio State for me, and I'm taking Ohio State.
So my final decision on this one is Ohio State, and partially because of the motivation of not wanting to lose in the first round again. But what I will mention about Chicago, Lucas Williamson, their senior guard, was on that Final Four team. They have upperclassmen across the board at the starting 5. They're going to make it tough on Ohio State. And I initially leaned in Loyola's favor, but because Ohio State has that factor of they don't want to lose again in the first round to another mid-major, I think that will be the overpowering difference. I think Ohio State has a little more motivation. Won't get them past Villanova, but I think Ohio State does win that game. It's now a pick 'em. I'll gladly take Ohio State in that game to face Villanova in a game that I think Villanova wins pretty handily just because of Ohio State's inconsistencies throughout the season. I do think they show up and trying to scout Villanova on short notice is not fun.
I will just say I am also taking Villanova to beat Ohio State. I low-key think that Ohio State's the scariest team in the bottom 8 teams of this, just in terms of matchups for Villanova.
Yes, it is, because Liddell could control that matchup. I look at Ohio State and look, if you put Colin Gillespie or Justin Moore and Malachi Branham, it's a really tough matchup. Yeah, and I don't think Ohio State recovers from that matchup. And by the way, just a little kind of inside basketball on that one. Chris Holtman coached Butler for a long time before he got the Ohio State job. Jay Wright's going to going to know Holtman's tendencies, even though it's a short scout. And I think you can flip that the other way too. But with a team like Villanova that doesn't make a ton of mistakes, and they're going to see at least a few similarities in how those Butler team played, I think that helps Jay Wright's team when they scout this game as well.
Yeah, so I'm just saying in terms of if you're a Villanova fan who doesn't really care about brackets, or you're filling out your bracket wanting Villanova to win, I would honestly be rooting for Loyola in that first round matchup.
Oh, absolutely.
I think that's I think they're a better matchup for Villanova. Ohio State, like you said, has EJ Liddell on the inside who could kind of hurt them. And Ohio State runs a fast tempo, which could mess with what Villanova wants to do. Malachi Branham is a good guard. But like you said, that matchup against Branham with more Gillespie on defense, I do think that he would struggle against those guys. So give me Villanova, and then I'm more confident in Villanova to beat Tennessee than I am Ohio State. So give me Villanova to beat Tennessee, and I assume you're taking Villanova to beat Michigan. You're having them knock out the whole Ohio State-Michigan rivalry here.
Yeah, I have 1 versus 2 in that bracket again, going with chalk. I think Arizona does beat Villanova, and it's because of the matchup in the paint. Arizona just has way too much length. And it's not just Coloco, it's Tabellas, it's Umar Bello. And if Kirk Reese is banged up, Arizona is going to try and bang down low, and that could really hurt Villanova because the one biggest weakness they have is they don't have size. And I think that's where the difference is made in that game.
So there it is. He's got Gonzaga, Kentucky, and Arizona so far. This is the first 3 in his final 4. I am going the other way. I'm taking Villanova. I just love the path that they have to get here to the Elite Eight. And I think that, I think that there's going to be a coaching advantage here. I know no one wants to talk about it because Tommy Lloyd I do think he's a really good coach, but the amount of experience, and he was at Gonzaga for a long time, and I get that. The amount of coaching experience as in terms of a head coach with Jay Wright compared to Tommy Lloyd, we've seen Arizona get in these ruts. I mean, we've seen them play really bad games. And I said on Twitter the other day, Arizona has the potential to be one of the best teams in recent memory when it's good Arizona. But I also think they have the potential to lose to an 8 or a 9 seed when they play their bad version of themselves, like they did against Colorado, like they did for the first half against UCLA in the Pac-12 title, which they were able to overcome because UCLA played so terribly down the stretch. But Arizona scares me a little bit in terms of how good everyone thinks they are, but I'd be lying if I said that I think they have a hard path. I think Arizona Villanova is a lock to happen in the Elite Eight. I'm just going with Villanova to win here. I totally understand why Coloco gives them a ton of problems, though. So that's going to be an interesting one. So let's move on to the bottom part and finish this out with Kansas against the winner of Texas Southern and Texas Corpus Christi. Do you have any play on that game tonight? I
do have Texas Southern. I think defensively they have the advantage, and also they've been there multiple times in the first 4. They won last year. It's because the SWAC has such poor metrics across the board that Texas Southern ends up in that first 4 game. They've been there twice in the last 4 years. They're back again. I think defensively they're the better team than A&M Corpus Christi. I have Texas Southern minus 3.5 tonight, and then obviously losing to Kansas on Thursday.
Yeah, I went Corpus Christi +4 tonight, but it's a really small, it's a small play for me. So just because they've been pretty good against the spread as a dog, and I am fading the SWAC. So, but I also have Kansas advancing obviously here, and then we've got San Diego State and Creighton in the 8-9 game. Do you feel strongly about this one? Is this one you'll be betting?
This is a defense wins championships type game for me. San Diego State's not going to win a championship, but I think the injury to Ryan Nembhard, the season ending for Creighton, catches up with them. San Diego State's a senior-laden team. They're in the top 50 across the board in pretty much every defensive metric. I think this one's pretty easy for me in San Diego State. And then I do have them losing to Kansas. It could be a tough matchup, but I think Kansas, at least in this form, there won't be any Ali Farouk Manesh sneaking up on them this time in the second round.
No, you stole everything I would say there. San Diego State, old team. Creighton, Nembhard. If you had Nembhard here, I'd be picking Creighton, but they don't. So I'm going with San Diego State, and then I absolutely like Kansas. I think Kansas got a pretty easy draw. They didn't get like a North Carolina in the 8-9 game. So I like how Kansas laid out here. And then we get to a 5-12 game. one of the biggest 5-12 spreads in terms of gambling that you'll ever see, with Iowa being like a 10.5, 11-point favorite. So Richmond would not be here without the A10 title, and I think that they are the true Georgetown team that you were talking about earlier. So give me Iowa, and we'll be talking a lot about Iowa in my bracket.
I have Iowa against Providence. I've talked myself through the Providence South Dakota State game on multiple angles. I love the fact that they put South Dakota State in that game, but I also love the fact that it's 2-point spread in Providence's favor. Providence is a really good team. They still are. Look, I've gotten my jokes off. You've gotten your jokes off about Providence. Providence is a better team. South Dakota State has some defensive problems, and I do think Providence win close games. That does mean something, at least in this matchup. I would love to see Iowa South Dakota State. I think it's going to be, that would be the highest over-under of the tournament without a doubt, but I can't pull the trigger on it. And I'm taking Providence to win their first round game. I don't think they can keep up with Iowa in the second round. So I'm going chalk, and then I'm going to the 5 seed. I'm giving Kansas, Iowa in the Sweet 16. I think Iowa's offense is just going to overpower what Providence can do, and maybe it maxes out their limitations offensively.
And then who do you have there finishing it out to get to the Elite Eight in Kansas against Iowa?
I'm going to go Kansas. I think I said Iowa as a gut reaction early on in the season, early on when I saw the brackets on Sunday. I can't trust the Big Ten. I can't. I got to be smart. Kansas is a very good team, and I do think that the metrics tell us something. Kansas is in the top 6 in KenPom for a reason. Ochai Agbaji would be the best player on the floor. Even against Keegan Murray in that matchup, I think Agbaji, because of the player he is on the college level, long-term, Keegan Murray is the best player for sure. But I think Kansas is going to have that one. I think they're going to find a way to frustrate Iowa. As much as I loved Iowa over the last few weeks, you got to remember conference tournaments are sometimes an anomaly, and overall season, Kansas has been better. And I think that's really what's leading me towards Iowa, them beating Iowa. The recency bias has to go away. You got to, look at the entire season, and Kansas is just the better team.
Yeah, so I'm going back to the Providence game. I am still getting my jokes off against Providence because I'm taking South Dakota State here. And I think Vegas told you everything you need to know with this game being a 2-point spread. It's the shortest spread of any 4-13 game in history. South Dakota State's no slouch, coming in winning 21 straight, the best 3-point shooting team in the tournament. I know that they are bad defense, but they've got the guard play, which is what you want with Baylor Shireman and Charlie Easley. They're going to give Ed Cooley nightmares. So give me South Dakota State here to advance, and then give me Iowa to absolutely roll South Dakota State, maybe like 140 to 110 in that game. That's going to be so high scoring. So give me Iowa to win there, and give me Kansas to beat San Diego State. And then we've got a Kansas-Iowa showdown, and I'm going with the best player on the floor. I'm going with Keegan Murray, and I'm going with the Iowa Hawkeyes to get to the Elite Eight. And, I guess I'm higher on the Big Ten than I thought coming in with Iowa getting to the Elite Eight, Purdue in the Elite Eight, and we'll see what happens at the bottom here. But I have a feeling I really like the Big Ten, so we'll see what happens. So let's move on to LSU Iowa State, the Depression Bowl. If every game had a bowl game named like the college football bowls do, this would be the Depression Bowl.
This is the TCU Cheez-It Bowl. This is what this is. I'll give you just one name, and I think this is an Isaiah Brockington game. I think he shows up, takes over the game. Iowa State's got a little more motivation. LSU's kind of dead with Will Reid being fired. Give me Iowa State. Just get that game over with so whoever that is can lose to Wisconsin. But I think Iowa State can win that game, and Isaiah Brockington from December and January shows up in that game.
Yeah, he definitely needs to for them to win. I'm just going with LSU's defense, even though I am mad that they fired my guy Will Wade. So they're going to get smoked by Wisconsin in the next round. Wisconsin gets to the Sweet 16. So then we move on to USC Miami, which I haven't announced today. I said on Twitter that, I have a game of the year brewing. This is the game of the year for me. I absolutely Like, I could not love Miami more in this game. Miami is my best bet on the board in the first round. If you've been following me, you know it's all about the U. I'm going back to the well. The well's been full all year long, especially as a dog. 9-2 against the spread as a dog. 7-4 outright as a dog. 8-1 in their last 9 as a dog. They've won 18 of their last 24 games, and 5 of those 6 losses were by 5 or less points. They play up and down to competition, but you've got to believe Jimmy Larrañaga will have the best version of the U ready for the tournament, and I'm not so sure you can say the same about USC. Andy Enfield just got a big extension. USC comes in limping a little bit, 1-3 straight up and against the spread in their last 4, 4-10 against the spread in their last 14. USC is only 9-15 against the spread as a favorite. Evan Mobley's not walking through that door. McGusty's like a 10-year senior at Miami. This is his 6th year in college, I think. Then you've got Wong, Moore, and Miller. A couple of them they've all hit clutch shots this year for Miami to win big games in the ACC. So I absolutely love McGusty and Moore to kind of go on a run here for Miami, not just in this game. But I'll just say it right now since we're getting to the end here. Auburn's playing a Jacksonville State team that shouldn't be here. Boo NCAA for not putting Bellarmine in. And we're not just putting Jacksonville in, who at least beat Jacksonville State, but whatever. Miami gets Auburn, and Auburn, because they're not playing this game at Auburn, is in some trouble. So give me Miami to beat Auburn, and that's it. That's my other double-digit seed that makes the Sweet 16. So I've got Wisconsin and Miami facing off in my Sweet 16 matchup. What do you got in the bottom part of this bracket?
I have Auburn going to the Elite Eight. I have to kind of trust what I've seen. I hate the way they've played on the road, but the draw has been – hold on. Can you hear me okay?
Yep, I can hear you.
Okay, sorry. I had to plug my phone in there. The Auburn's draw, to me, is fantastic. Miami beats USC. I agree with you on that. I just can't get behind Miami, an inconsistent team from the ACC, to really win 2 games in the NCAA tournament. I think Auburn has the better athletes. I think they're the better team. And look, USC's biggest flaw, they're the worst free throw shooting team in the field of 68. And you're right, they're limping in. I think Wisconsin, not a huge fan of Wisconsin kind of closing out a tight game. I think in my bracket, they get an easy draw with Iowa State. Then they get a little tight and play Auburn. And I actually, the more I look at this draw, the more I think Auburn kind of capitalizes on the potential. And I have Auburn going to the Final Four.
Wow, there you go. So that's that. Joe Tansey has Auburn advancing past Kansas. And then that means his Final Four right there is Gonzaga, Kentucky, Arizona, and Auburn. I've got Iowa advancing past Kansas, and then I've got Wisconsin advancing past Miami. I've got a Big Ten matchup here in the Elite Eight with Iowa and Wisconsin. And this is the game that I don't know what to do. This is like the game that I've tossed and turned on more than any in this bracket. Wisconsin to get to the Elite Eight. I'm not as afraid of Auburn as a lot of people, and I think it'd be a bad matchup for Miami against Wisconsin, and I think they have a really easy matchup in the second round. But I think Iowa's the better team, and I think Iowa's the hotter team. And I think if this matchup happens, I'll be betting hard on Iowa. So even though I kind of did the opposite with the Gonzaga Duke thing, I'm going to trust my gut, and I'm going to go with the Iowa Hawkeyes, a 5 seed, to make it to my Final Four. So I've got a 1, a 2, a 4, and a 5 in Gonzaga, UCLA, Villanova, and Iowa. So let's get to the Final Four and pick a champion here. You've got Gonzaga and Kentucky in the Final Four. That'd be a fun matchup. Who do you got winning?
So I'm going Gonzaga and Auburn in my final. I think Gonzaga is going to win the national tournament title. I finally think it's their year. They're very good, and I think if they can get past Duke, I think they can handle what Kentucky brings to the table. I think that matchup's fairly even, and then I think I have Auburn beating Arizona. I have a gut here. I was on Auburn mid-January. They have a future on them. I'm going to ride it out with them. And I think the inexperience in coaching, maybe Tommy Lloyd playing in his first Final Four as a head coach against Bruce Pearl, I think that ends up being a small factor. And look, Jabari Smith is the best player in that matchup. He's in the mix for the number 1 overall pick for a reason. And look, everything I look at Gonzaga when they play a game against Auburn, they have the edge in the backcourt. Holmgren and Miami can contain Walker Kessler, which a lot of people can't. And I think that's the factor here. I know I'm going chalk, but I think Gonzaga is the best team in the country, and I think they finally get that done.
No, I think that they've got a great path to get there. I think it makes a ton of sense. So I think now moving on to mine here, I've got Gonzaga UCLA in a rematch of last year. Jalen Suggs hits that big shot, and that sends UCLA home. I think UCLA is going to be hungry. I think UCLA's coming out firing after that disappointing loss last year, where they felt like they probably could have beat Gonzaga and shocked the world. And I'm taking UCLA to go to the national championship. And then I've got a weird one, Villanova Iowa, which gives me almost Villanova Oklahoma vibes of when Buddy Hield took Oklahoma to the Final Four to play Villanova. And it's kind of the same with Keegan Murray taking Iowa to the Final Four here. And I think Villanova smokes Iowa just like Villanova smoked Oklahoma with Buddy Hield, and I'm taking Villanova to beat Iowa. And then we've got UCLA and Villanova in my championship, and I'm going with UCLA to cut down the nets and to win the national championship. I just trust Mick Cronin. I trust the experience that last year gave them. Jaime Jaquez is on fire right now, playing better than anyone in the country. Tiger Campbell is a point guard that can win you a national championship. They're a different team when Riley is healthy, which he is right now. But really, this is a bet in Mick Cronin, honestly. Mick Cronin had a whole team return for a whole year. They had the whole offseason to talk about what happened in the Final Four and to talk about what their goals were. And, I think UCLA figures it out. But again, I think the winner of that East region wins the tournament. I'm sure I'll be filling out 3 brackets in my big bracket money pool, and I'll have one with UCLA winning, one with Purdue winning, and one with Kentucky winning. I think all 3 of those teams were the 3 that I wanted to win the title, and they will be battle tested if they come out of that East region. So give me UCLA to cut down the nets in New Orleans.
Hey, look, you've been on those 3 teams all season, so you got to stick to your guns on them. You do, and I respect that. Auburn was the first future I put in mid-January, and I'm going to probably let that ride into the Final Four just because I'm kind of going with my gut here. That's what you have to do. Matchups can only take you so far sometimes, and look, it is when you get to the nitty-gritty, it's 1 and 2 seeds. And it's the top teams in the country, and I think Gonzaga cashes in finally as a national champion.
But if mine happens, we both cash out on 30-1 UCLA tickets. So I don't think you'd be complaining if my champion hits here.
No, I would not. I would not at all.
So that's been our bracket, folks. We went really in depth there. I thought that was really fun. I didn't want anyone else to be my guest on this show other than Joe Tansey. The guy's a college basketball savant. So thank you to Joe for coming on and filling out his bracket live on the air here. And thank you for everyone who listened. We're going to be posting this will be posted on the YouTube show for the Painted Line. So be able to check us out the next couple of days before the bracket, starts on Thursday. You'll check it out through the first 4. So thanks for everyone for listening, and happy holidays. This is the best time of the year. I'm the worst at outroing here, but thank you for listening, folks. Enjoy March.